Hey, well, I appreciate the opportunity to be on your podcast. And yeah, it's a fascinating subject, really. I kind of stumbled on it, honestly. I was doing historical research, and I was studying the Celts in Europe, and as I was studying them, and this is 2010,
Yeah.
to kind of give you a reference. Of course, I already believed in giants from childhood, stories in the Bible. David and Goliath is probably the most famous story.
Yeah, that was like something in school. I was like, well, how big was he? And everybody was like, he could have been, 6 feet tall, because they would say that they were 4.5 feet tall. And I was just like, that just can't be right. Like, everything else in the Bible is true, they would say, but except, I don't know, but it was fascinating. And it's like my biggest, I think when I started looking up giants is what made me believe in the Bible even more. It like solidified in my faith, because now I started to see, the bones come up, the 6 fingers and all that, all the evidence from, how Goliath looked with his description.
Right.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
I went off on a little.
So, while we're on Goliath real quick, you mentioned him maybe being 6 foot, like people would say.
Yeah, they would say that.
Yeah, they would say that. Or like maybe tops he was like 9 feet, but he withheld the whole Israelite army for days. I can't remember the exact amount of days. I want to say 40 days. I may be wrong, but like nobody would fight him. Like nobody would go out there. So I looked into that, and I think what they're doing is using a Roman cubit, and that's the Old Testament, and they didn't have the Roman cubit in the Old Testament. So if you look at the ancient Israelite cubits, it has him closer to about 12 feet, maybe just shy of 12 feet tall. So that's more believable as to why no one wanted to fight him.
Yeah, because he had to have been huge. There's no way, because there's a lot of big guys. There's always someone that has, the alpha that's going to stand up, but not even the alphas apparently were standing up, except for David. And there's something interesting about that part in the story where he said he picks up, I believe 5 stones. Like to me, as more I started reading about the giants and stuff, I assumed that David got those because he was going to kill like all the brothers. Yeah. There's 4 other brothers there. I was like, that's pretty epic if he was like, I'm going to take all you out. Did you ever think about that?
He was sending a psychological message, wasn't he?
Yeah, because I don't think he planned on missing. So yeah, but
no, I don't think so. Yeah, so I started looking into the giants after I started to find that they were buried in the burial mounds throughout Europe, the British Isles, and I was following this trail of megalithic builders. The stones, the standing stones.
Yeah.
They left the trailway whenever they left, whenever they left the Holy Land. They left the trailway of standing stones and burial mounds. And I didn't expect to find the giants in those mounds. They were not all the Celtic peoples were giants, but some of them were, or at least they seemed to live among them. And so from there, I started to look at books. I bought a book called The Nephilim Chronicles. You may have heard of Fritz Zimmerman.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
So he's written a few books.
Isn't there like an encyclopedia one that he wrote?
Yes.
With Marzulli?
Yeah. Marzulli's one.
Yeah, I have that
book. Fritz has, he kind of just looked strictly into like the Ohio Valley. I guess there were a lot of them up there. And you can see a lot of huge burial mounds up there. And so once I got his book, I was like, okay. And he made a connection also to the biblical land with these guys over here in the U.S. and the American giants.
So were they all connected, or was this like?
Yes. Yeah. He calls them Amorites, which that was a tribe of giant in the Holy Land whenever like Joshua and the Israelites came in.
I was about to say that.
Yeah.
Do you think they scattered over there after Joshua came in, pretty much?
Yeah.
Like, you gotta go, you know what I mean?
We gotta go. We gotta leave.
That story is actually, like, when I hear these stories, I picture like an epic scene that cannot be repeated in any movie. Like, this has to be like some, as I walked through the valley of the shadow of death, I believe they were really walking through the valley of the shadow of death. I mean,
like physically.
So when he said they're the sons of Enoch, right, that were in the promised land, they said when they looked at them, there were grasshoppers in their sight. Now, what do you think, like, how tall do you think these giants were? Like, how much of that is a metaphor, or like, I mean, they were like 100 feet tall. I don't think.
I don't. Yeah, maybe I don't.
20.
I personally don't think they were 100 feet tall.
Yeah, neither do I. I think that's fantasy.
Yeah, I think so. But it is stated in Amos, the book of Amos. God talks about them being as tall as cedar trees.
How big are the cedar trees?
Well, I think that right there may be sort of a metaphor, or just to give you an idea, right? So cedar trees are pretty big. I mean, you can look at the cedars of Lebanon; they're huge.
Yeah. But
I mean, a cedar tree where I'm from is going to be about 15, 20 feet tall.
That's still pretty big.
Still pretty big, yeah.
Well, wasn't King Og about that tall, 13 feet? King Og?
Yeah, I think he was between 13 and 15 feet.
It's definitely a cedar tree height right there. You know.
He was a Rephaite, which is like he has a pure bloodline of a giant. But there were so many, I believe a lot of those tribes had the giant blood in them, like the Nephilim blood.
And what?
In their veins.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you have, all these articles, I mean, I go into so many articles. The one that talks about that, I think it's found in India. Like 35 foot.
Oh,
which one? Like,
that one's huge.
Can you talk about that one? Like, give us some details about that. That's massive. Yeah. That's massive.
That's like one of the biggest ones I've found. And honestly, I don't have it right in front of me, but I do believe it's like around 30 to 32 feet tall. And I found a lot of different newspapers talking about that one. And so it was like, there wasn't only one newspaper. So like a lot of them got the story. And we're talking about it. Some of them called it like an ape. Some of them called it a giant man.
Didn't they?
And so you had mixed feelings upon it, but
didn't they kind of connect it to that god Hanam? Maybe that could have been the body or something like that. It's like a big giant monkey god that they used to worship, and it happened to be in the area where they found the body.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it could be.
Anything's possible after everything that I've looked up, and It's a fact. Yeah. It's a fact to me that giants were real. There's no one can tell me otherwise. Like nobody can tell me otherwise.
Yeah, no, it's real.
Oh, it's a mastodon bone, whatever. You know, elephants don't wear jewelry. You know, when they find the bodies, they have armor. You know, like how is it going to be? How could it be an animal with they're finding all these helmets and giant swords and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, what's your
and I've uncovered stuff like that in the U.S. too. It's like.
Oh yeah, talk
giant
about it.
Long
definitely.
Swords, like
how big are these?
One of
things?
these swords was like 7 foot long, and then one of these giants that I came across was like he was wearing Assyrian style armor, and he was pretty big. He was around like I'm going to say between 12 and 15 feet tall.
And these are all in America.
That one was in America, which was strange because he wore, well, maybe it wasn't strange, but he was wearing Middle Eastern style armor, which that's where they originated, was over there, because Assyria is just north of Israel. The old Assyrian Empire.
Because there's a lot of Egyptian artifacts too, right? Or in the Arizona.
Yes, in Arizona, the hieroglyphics that were discovered in the caverns in Arizona, in the Grand Canyon area.
Yeah. It's like cave. It's like some kind of cave, right? Some kind of cave system.
Yes. Yeah, there was a cave system, and strangely, once that guy, Mr. Kincaid from the Smithsonian, discovered this, I mean, they did all this reporting on it, and then after that, it was just disappeared. Like nobody else reported on it. It was an in-depth. I found an article on that years ago, and I was going through my archives, and I have so many reports I couldn't find it, so I had to research it again. So I found a couple different articles about it, but I guess the giants that were in there were probably right around 8 feet, 8'11" or something like that, according to like the Gazeta de Arizona reported in 1909, and then we have another one. Let me see what this one is.
This is a man that does his research right here. You do your research, like. Cannot argue.
Yeah, you know what? I hated doing this because I actually went to the internet and found these two stories. I don't like doing that. I actually go to like the Library of Congress websites.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which are just like, they're just archives of newspapers, and you have to do word search. And sometimes your word search doesn't pull it up. I tried to word search it again, and it didn't pull anything up this time on that actual article from the Arizona Grand Canyon report, which is strange.
Oh, yeah.
But
a lot of those articles were coming out in the 1800s, right? Like the late 1800s, they're finding all these bones, and then something just happened where the stories just
right.
What do you think happened in your research? Why like all these bones were being discovered, and it was like a fact that people were seeing these things on display? Even in the book of Flavius Josephus, there's a part that I read. I forgot exactly what chapter it's in, but Flavius Josephus wrote. I forgot where it was in display. Somewhere it was. The bones were in display for everybody to see. I forgot what nation it was in, but it was a fact knowing that there was giants and they had their bones there for display for people to see. And Flavius Josephus said the people would awe it, even though they were evil. It was amazing to see these massive bones of these creatures, and they would have, their armor there and their swords. And they said, like the way Flavius Josephus wrote it, it was every day. Dogs are real, cats are real. Yes, they were giants. It was a fact.
Yeah. I think that like Josephus and people before him, and even much maybe later than him, it was just common knowledge, right? I mean, it wasn't even a question. But I think more in our recent times, from the mid 1900s till now, it's just been shut down. Completely. And so like the generations coming along now, they don't know it about this, and then they don't really believe it because they don't see evidence. And I mean, a lot of these reports that I find, they're sending them to the local museum, right? Or they'll send them all the way to Washington. Washington will come get it, or they'll send it to Carnegie. Or a lot of them are going to like well-known places. But I will say that sometimes the bones are so old that once it was exposed to air, to oxygen, they just crumbled. So I think it had to do with maybe how much moisture is in the ground, how long it was there. Did it have a chance to fossilize, or did it not? Yeah, but there were so many that were sent away.
Didn't the Vatican collect a lot of these bones? The Roman Catholic Church?
I wouldn't doubt it.
I heard that a lot in Timothy Alberino. He had a documentary for True Legends, and he was reading from the what are they called again? The Conquistadors, their diaries.
Oh, yeah.
And the Inquisition, and they were writing about how the Roman Catholic Church will come out, collect the bones. I mean, they were speaking like the people that they teach us our history from, in their diary, they're writing that they found, when the massive wells digged that only giants could dig, and they saw the bones, and they said, I believe in one of the diaries of these guys, he got the sword and he could put it into the eye socket of the skull, and the sword barely reached the back of the skull.
Right. Yeah, I've read that report.
So that has to be, that has to be like a 20-foot giant. I mean, it's massive. I mean, sword. I mean, the skull is this. That's crazy.
But dude, some of these that I find, and these guys that I find that may be 9 feet tall, but it says their skulls are like 1 inch, like an inch to inch and a half thick. That's crazy.
They're what was I gonna say? So, like the way, like why are they big? Like I always thought, like why you have an angel and a human, a woman, and I'm assuming the angel that mated with the woman was around the same size, right?
Right. Yeah.
For biological purposes or biology purposes, and why are they just born huge? Like, why did they get so big? And I had like a theory, like, how there's, 1, 2, 3, 4 dimensions, 5, 6 dimensions. And the more dimensions we have, the more mass we have. Correct. Yeah. So it was my theory that because their fathers are from a higher dimension, they how do you say it? They get more mass, they get more mass from their fathers, their genes, their father's genetics.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense.
Because like, why are they just born so big when they're coming from
so huge?
Normal sized people. Because you have to have more, they have an extra dimension to them that they get from their father, but it's not supposed to. So then, I don't know, some kind of deformity happened because it's a human and it's not supposed to be there. So it grew out of proportion. I have no idea, but I just always thought, why are they so big?
Like, I often wonder, did the angel Did the angels know that was going to happen?
Yeah, it's like why are you so big? It's not supposed to.
It's not supposed to happen. So you have weird stuff like double rows of teeth. You know, the 6 fingers.
Yeah, that's kind of like reminds me of like a shark or like a reptile or something. Is that any kind of relation to that, or any kind of weird?
Not
genetics?
sure. I almost attribute it to like just like a flaw. You know, some of these dudes had horns on their head too.
I think those could have been part animal though, maybe.
Maybe. Like I found a one here, pull it up here, is from 1899, and let's see. It didn't have like the height of him, but his skull was so thick. I guess part of his other bones had decayed, but he had 4 horns, like 2 coming up. The 2 above were upward, and the 2 below his ear were pointing downwards, which is strange.
You heard about that one?
No, that's crazy.
Oh, okay, you're going like that. Like, yeah, it's crazy. I thought you heard about it. Yeah, I think I seen a picture of one where there's.
Yeah, I did an artist rendition of it because it was so wild. I'd never come across one like that. And honestly, I wouldn't, back in the day when I started, I was like, I don't know about these things. Like, I wouldn't report them. I was like, why don't I report it? You know, it's a newspaper article. If they said it had like these bone nodules or, you know, it looked like bone, they said, but it was like stuck to their skull. But they were like buried with all these other men. But some of them had like horn sticking out of their head.
Wow, that's
so
interesting.
Like 6 fingers, 6 toes, that's not normal. You know, having 2 rows of teeth, like that would be kind of a pain.
It's kind of like that extra dimension thing.
Yeah.
I mean, they have like extras of everything, extra mass. And these beings, like, by the way, for the audience, because I'm pretty sure me and you, I mean, I'm not as advanced as you are, but giants is one of my favorite subjects. I mean, it's the one that's so interesting. It's so interesting that, like, it's not like, you know, like I worship these things. Of course not, you know, I'm God, right. Jesus Christ all the way, but it's just so interesting. And so it just blows my mind that there is a point where there's massive creatures just walking around, eating people, doing whatever they want. I mean, they're pretty much like kind of like move like superheroes because they were bigger. Like, they weren't like basketball players. You know, if they were 8 feet tall, they weren't like these skinny, you know, like can't walk right. You know, you kind of have a lot of issues when you're that tall. Like, these things, from what I read, they were very faster than the fastest human, you know, stronger than the strongest human. But at that size,
they're proportionate. Like, if you were 8 foot tall, you were 4 foot wide.
Yeah.
Shoulders.
They were really robust.
So right. They weren't just like long and lanky. They were like, they looked normal for that height. Yeah, like, they didn't look weird.
And what happens? The volume go up? Hello?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, sorry, my thing cut out. Yeah, this is where, like, they get all the stories from. In my opinion, like, I think Hercules was a giant, right? I mean, wasn't he? Yeah. How tall was he?
From what I understand,
I think I heard he was about 12 feet tall or something like that. But he was also dead. Like, all these things, when you start looking into the real history, there's always a giant involved, many giants involved. Like all these, like, you know, you watched all these cartoons that they remake these movies like Hercules and all these, they make them look like these little playful, fun little characters, but little do they know they enslaved mankind. They cannibalized us. I mean, there's a lot of history, or not a history, a lot of, history, but evidence in the Native American, what's that canyon called that's built on the top? You know what I'm talking about? That city.
Chaco Canyon?
Chaco Canyon, is that it?
Oh, yes. Yeah, Chaco Canyon. And that's not far from the Grand Canyon area, that part of the U.S.
Yeah, there's like
New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado.
Yeah, it's all in that area right there.
Yeah.
So there's like this whole, you know, the native story behind that. You know, not the mainstream story they give you at the park. When you ask them about what really happened, you know, in that area, they said that they were doing some kind of witchcraft, and they summoned, these portals started opening, and it's written on these little whatever paintings or whatever they are, these hieroglyphs.
Pictographs on the wall.
Pictographs, and they have these little swirls, and it shows like these weird creatures with like these big horns, and some look like with 4 arms, and it's, you know, telling the story. And they said, you know, they were doing this stuff with the kivas. They're doing all this witchcraft stuff, and I guess they end up summoning, you know, all these portals start opening, all these giants start coming out, and I guess there was like a main reptilian one that came out, and it had a halo of all things, the way to describe it. So it's pretty.
Wow.
It's pretty creepy. But they said that the reason why they built their city up in that, like, it was like, why would you build it way up there and just make it hard?
Oh, right, way up in the cliffs.
Because they're saying that that's where, like, one of the, like, because they're gone. Like, when they found that place, everything was gone. Like, they just got up and left. They said they built it like that because they were trying to defend themselves from the giants that they were battling against.
I mean, there's a lot of giants discovered in that area. Well, you want me to read one real quick?
Go ahead. No, I'm sorry. I love talking about giants. You know, go ahead and talk because I love to learn. I'm pretty sure you have a lot of stuff to tell me.
Oh man, there's so many.
Go ahead.
This one right here is in Arizona, and this is one I just discovered a couple days ago. This is from 1900, the Tombstone Epitaph, and let me just read. It's not too long. Remains of giants. Wonderful stories are told about Arizona and Mexico. A prominent scientist is telling the New York World about the tribes in this territory, relates the following. Legends of Indian tribes of Arizona and northern Mexico teem with tales of a race of giants that once lived in the mesas. Scientists say that prehistoric man was a little hairy creature bearing a closer resemblance to a monkey than a man. Darwinism enforces this belief. But the finding of a prehistoric skeleton in the Grand Canyon of the Colorado would overthrow all arguments of the scientists.
Wow. So that just basically sounds like they don't want to,
yeah,
because they don't want to get rid of the little fairy tale live evolution.
Well, it sounds like even in 1900, Darwin. I don't study Darwinism, so I did in school a little bit. They taught me a little bit, but I didn't focus on it. So I didn't realize even back in 1900 he was a dude. You know, his theory was already taking wildfire. But it says 40 miles from Flagstaff, Arizona, Hull, the guide has unearthed the petrified skeleton of a man whom he estimates to have been at least 17 feet tall.
Wow.
An old Indian led the guide to the human monster's tomb. The skeleton lay face downward on a shelf under a protruding rock. The right arm was extended. The left leg was missing. The right leg had been broken off at the knee, but the foot was found ledged in a crevice nearby. Lime water, falling on the corpse, had turned it into stone. The outlines of the body were perfect. Hull did not turn the fossilized skeleton over to make any accurate measurements. He said the old Indian studied the stone skeleton for about 10 minutes and then returned to the trail. Wow. So that right there is
17 feet.
Not far from where they discovered that city under, all those cavern systems.
Wow. There's so much. And like with the giants, like their description, what did they use? What did they mostly look like? Like their skin color, hair, etc.
Yeah. Well, okay. What I've I don't know if you've heard of the Lovelock Caves there in that same region.
That's the one they burnt them in there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they said they had reddish hair. It wasn't like fiery red. It was a auburn red, like a kind of like a rust-colored dark red. Like so in between brown and red. Yeah. And that's so weird. I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
But I have found giant skeletons or discovered them more towards the east. They found one, if I remember correctly, he was between 7 and 8 feet tall, and he was wearing copper armor, and he had jet black hair, like really long, coarse jet black hair. So there are legends of the red-haired giants fighting the black-haired giants. So these Indian legends. Yeah. So there's I think there were more than one tribe of giants.
Many tribes.
They might have fought each other off.
What? There's some kind of story in the Bible like that where God says something like, "I'm gonna make your children fight each other," something like that. I don't know if it was that in the Book of Enoch, but yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah, Enoch might have said something about that.
Yeah. Well, definitely, there's a lot of giants in Enoch. I mean, I don't know about 400 feet tall though, but
yeah. And Enoch has an odd measurement written there, and that's hard to figure out what is it actually saying.
Yeah,
L's, I think it's called. so many L's tall.
Yeah,
No,
when you do the math, it's like 400 feet or something like that.
Right.
I don't think, yeah.
I know there are certain books, there are certain parts of Enoch that may not be totally accurate.
Yeah, I believe there's
Enoch
3.
1, I think, is the most accurate.
Yeah, that's the one.
3, something like that might have some fabrications in it.
Yeah, that's the one that I read. And speaking of, well, because most of the giants, they have like these different feet. They have like usually these lighter features most of the time. And like even their eyes, they said their eyes even kind of glow sometimes, or like they have this glow to it. I don't know how accurate that is.
Yeah, like,
maybe they can see at night. Maybe
Zuli thinks they are nocturnal.
Yeah.
Their eyes are so much larger.
And they probably can see at night. I'm assuming that's why their eyes were glowing. They probably can absorb way more light than
they can see under the ground if they're living underground or something like that.
There's a tribe too called means that the cave dwellers. I forgot what the exact name is for that. Dad, you know that one, the cave dwellers? That tribe, what was the name of them?
The Horites.
The Horites.
Oh, the Horites,
Yeah, that means cave dwellers. So maybe these things were
interesting.
Yeah.
And they were a tribe of giants there in kind of where Esau ended up living in the Bible.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, Travis.
Yes.
I was reading this book, and I wonder if you've ever heard this story. This book called Death Valley Men. It says Bork Lee related a conversation among residents of Death Valley, this is California, concerning the local Paiute Native American legends of an underground city at Wingate Pass. After falling through the ceiling of an unknown tunnel, the miner had followed 20 miles north to the Peniment Mountains to discover a huge ancient underground city. He saw arching stone vaults and huge stone doors and a polished round table in the center of their council chamber, which had been lit by some kind of lighting, fueled by subterranean gases. And what he discovered in there evidently were like mummified saber-toothed, ancient, reptoids, dinosaurs, giant spears made of gold. And evidently this cave ended at Imperial Valley, California, overlooking a quarry. So at one time that was underwater. So I wonder if you heard about that. I mean, that's wild. I mean, this guy
that's fascinating.
Yeah, this guy found like a chamber with these ancient animals that were taken down by these giants that they found in this caverns. It's wild.
Never heard of that either.
I don't know if I've heard of that. A lot of what you're saying sounds so familiar, though. But I think I'm pretty sure that is pretty common with these giants.
Yeah, it says
they always got like nice metals and jewelry, right? They're always found with this kind
weird.
of.
It says leaning against the walls were their tall gold spears. He said the designs on their thick golden armbands resembled the work of Egyptians.
Wow.
And the tunnel ended at Furnace Creek Ranch in California's Imperial Valley. And obviously it says right here, the Smithsonian took over. So there you go. Gone, buried, bye.
Yeah. I would wonder why they want to hide that. So, what's the push to hide that?
It makes the Bible true.
And
that's what I would think.
And keeps the evolution nonsense going too. I don't even think people are believing in evolution anymore like they used to, because it's just the picture with the the monkey starts turning into it's so dumb to look at that, to ever believe that I believed that. I was like, what? There's no way.
Well, yeah. He finally makes it to about 6 foot tall, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, you find all this other stuff, and then you find that they were intelligent. They had these, they're carving out these underground cities, and they have all these hieroglyphs written. They have, like you're saying, the gold spears. And I don't believe those are fabricated stories.
No, I don't think so.
I don't believe it at all for a second. I tend to believe that, even like where I'm from, this area here, there's Rockwall, Texas. It was like an ancient city, and they try to keep it hidden. There's hieroglyphs discovered there, and someday I want to go try to poke around and see if I can find out more about that.
Yeah, you've got some giant footprints there that were mentioned. And I put on my personal Instagram page that giant footprint in South Africa. That's from an article by Robert Schoch. That's German. Yeah. He's a PhD, and he talks about this giant footprint in granite. And he estimates this entity had to be at least 7 to 7.5 meters, which is, over 21 foot tall. And the pushback is, how do you get, a footprint, indentation on a granite? Well, a miner says that when you quarry granite, you make it to a powdery type of like a cement. And when you add water to it, it'll harden over time. So evidently that's how this is done. No, this giant person wasn't walking on a 1200 degree surface. More than likely, this was some kind of pulverized, rock that gelled, over time.
Right.
It's probably more of a muddy consistency, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Man. I mean, I when I read that, I'm like, wait a minute here. I wonder if this has something to do with the giant stones in Machu Picchu. I mean, maybe they were pulverizing.
Probably like putty or something like that.
Yeah, maybe they're pulverizing rock.
You can't fit anything between the stones. They look like they're like clay.
So doesn't that make sense now? I mean, maybe they pulverized this granite and they made it into a clay, a muddy clay, and they let it harden.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I mean,
they had ways that we don't know about still.
Yeah.
Like they had technology. I mean, anybody who could have, massive walled cities that big, we don't know how they got them up there.
Yeah.
I was also wondering, in your research, did you find anything regarding white-haired people buried with giants, like normal-sized peoples?
I haven't come across anything personally, but I have come across normal-sized peoples with giants, though.
Right.
Now, a lot of them were skeletons. So, could they have had white hair? Like, are you talking like white hair, or just like a blonde hair?
No, I think
or
it's
just
white.
like a white.
Yeah, I heard about
almost
that.
like a fairy type person or elven type person.
Well, doesn't a lot of these giants? A lot of the history of it comes from the Irish. The Tuatha De Danann.
Right.
And the leprechauns. They have that red hair. The green eyes, and it's kind of like these giants. A lot of them in America had that kind of look. Maybe they fled over here from Ireland. Who knows? Because
there's a
whole thing about the Tuatha De Danann.
Yeah. Here it is. 9-foot giant buried next to a fair-skinned infant girl.
Okay.
There's this is dated back to A History of Jennings County, Indiana, 1885. Again, a human skeleton of unusual size was found in and around. From comparative measurements, the bones of the skeleton was thought to have been about 9 feet in length. And it goes into finding the fair-skinned, fair-haired little infant girl. That's weird. I mean,
that's odd, isn't it?
Yeah. So I mean,
that's pretty weird.
I have no explanation.
It's like Lord of the Rings or something.
It is.
It's like the Targaryens from Game of Thrones, the white hair.
Mm-hmm.
So what other articles do you have, Travis, that will interest give us
it's all interesting. So I love to hear this. I love this stuff. Tell us the new stuff, your favorite stuff, all of it.
Okay.
Even you have little people too.
That's what when you mentioned that, the Lord of the Rings, I started looking for my report of the little people.
Start going through the notes.
The problem is with that is I have way too many articles so many right here. Too. And when I'm looking for them, I can't find them. I will, since we were talking about it, even though I don't seem to have it right here, I may have it in this folder. But there was, and I believe in South Dakota, which, isn't too far from Indiana, I think a little over to the west. But when they were building a railway, they uncovered a burial mound with an 8-foot tall giant. And there was like 40 or to 50 hobbits. Maybe they weren't hobbits, but they were little people. They were only like 4 feet tall, but they were adults. But they were all in the same burial mound. So you had one dude that was 8 foot, and then you had like a whole tribe
like
of
half,
little people.
Yeah. What the skeleton structure the same? Was the proportion? Like, was it?
Yeah. Well, I think they said the little people were buried kind of standing up, and then the giant was laying down. But yeah, that was weird to me. It's like, man, this is just like the Lord of the Rings.
This is some
like
weird
I thought this was all fantasy, but the more I'm finding out, like the underworld, all these cities under the earth or in caves or in mountains, like that fair-haired princess type buried with a giant, or like all these little people buried with a giant. It's like, this is interesting because it seems like Lord of the Rings is more real life.
I really think Lord of the Rings is a very accurate description, in my opinion, of what the world was like before the flood. I don't care what anybody says, because
I'm believing that more and more the more I study this
there's
stuff.
Like all these different, and there's like even like I call them medium giants. There's like some that are like maybe 7-8 feet tall, maybe looking like that Alvin kind of look, because we have those kind of descriptions too in history. Then you have like the big Hulk looking ones, 15, 20 feet, not very good looking, ugly, hideous looking ones. Mm-hmm. And then I'm pretty sure, the more, Nordic looking ones, which is described a lot, are probably the ones that they couldn't, they said they were so beautiful, some of these demigods or whatever. I think that was like that kind of look. Because in the book of Enoch, I don't know if you ever read any of it, but there's a book in it called the Book of Noah. And I believe it's Lamech. Mm-hmm. I believe Lamech, his father, he had Noah, and in that little reading, it basically says that when the baby came out, his hair was white as wool, and his skin was white as wool, and his eyes shone like the sun. And Lamech became terrified. He became terrified, and he said, "I have begot a child from the heavens." So like, meaning that this is like common knowledge, in this time, that these angels have a certain kind of look. Hair white as wool. I mean, because why did he think that, assume that from this look? And he was terrified. So he went to go, speak to his, his grandfather. And, he basically told, he basically didn't deny or confirm if his dad was from heaven or not. But he basically just told him, don't worry, this kid Noah that's born, he's here for a good reason. He's going to be the cause of a great event, will enhance the flood.
Wow.
But my point is that everyone knew during these times, because they lived amongst these things, that, because he said, "Oh my God, I begot a child from the Son of God." So, because the look, so they have like this look. At least some of them have this very fair. We're not talking about like some kind, some Caucasian guy. We're talking about this really porcelain,
like look, angelic or something.
Because for the listeners, you know how it is. So we're looking for this. It's like a crazy look. Can't describe it.
Well, you bring a good point too about the ones that were like 7 foot tall, or the ones that are like 15 feet tall.
They have like a different look.
Yeah, like a different race or tribe of them.
Whoever their fathers were.
That's a good point, really.
Yeah. No, because their fathers, because when you read, I keep going back to the book of Enoch, but it's the only one that really has a detailed description of these giants and who their dads were. And there's like 4 main captains that came down, Semjaza. And like 3 other ones anyways, but there's like these 4 to 7, I think, main fallen angels. Don't quote me on that. I just know that there's more than one, and they all have like a different look. All these fallen angels have like a different look, and maybe, whoever they chose to be their wives, that's what these look like, because that's what this looked like. This angel looked like this, and this angel looked like that, because there are different classes of angels.
Right.
There's a seraphim, they call it, which would be described as a fiery serpent. It sounds like to me like some kind of reptile thing. And then you have these, these really light ones that are angelic looking. They call them the UFO world will call them the Nordics.
Yeah.
And on it goes. There's like even these cherubim ones. They have like 4 heads. I mean, who knows? I mean, because you have all these histories of these centaur looking things, or half horse, half human. I mean, what if their father is from that cherubim that fell? Who knows? I mean, I have no idea.
There's so much out there that, and the deal is the historians, let's say that, the historians, the academics are not teaching us this stuff in school.
Absolutely not.
History is suppressed. And so we have to come about this on our own, right? And I'm very thankful there's like an explosion of it right now. It seems to be like people want to know what is the history of the world really.
Yeah, it's interesting is what it is.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I've got one here from Louisiana I can read.
Oh, my mom's from there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
She's gonna love to listen to this one. Hopefully it's not by her house.
Crowville, Louisiana.
Oh, yeah.
So
honestly,
I don't even know where that's at.
It sounds like it'll be next to my mom.
This is 1914. Find giants' skeletons. In life, they average 12 feet in height. So let's see. Skeletons of a race of giants who averaged 12 feet in height were found by workmen engaged on a drainage project at Crowville near here. There are several score at least of the skeletons, and they lie in various positions. It is believed they were killed in a prehistoric fight, and that the bodies lay where they fell until covered with deposits due to the flooding of the Mississippi River. No weapons of any sorts were found, and it is believed the Titans must have struggled with wooden clubs. The skulls are in perfect state of preservation, and some of the jawbones are large enough to fit around a baby's body.
Wow.
Good grief.
They found 4 of them?
No, it says scores.
Oh.
It said, there's at least 60 giants.
Wow.
That were on average 12
feet tall.
All kind of scattered about in this area. They weren't necessarily buried. It almost looked like they died.
Like there's some kind of catastrophe happened maybe.
Yeah. Isn't that nuts?
Well, that's another, you make a good point right there, because you said they found a plethora of these things, right? All 12 feet tall. So a lot of people that try to discredit this, the history of giants being here and walking the earth, they try to say, it's gigantism, they have gigantism. And gigantism, is, I know it's somewhat of a very, 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 very small percent that you're going to get. Maybe like, I don't know, 1,000 people in the world have it. Yeah. So there's no way that there's finding thousands of giant skeletons all have gigantism. It's impossible. So it's not, it's not a deformity. Yeah. It's not a deformity. It's a genetic trait. It's like a subhuman race.
Right.
A lot of them, like you said, a bunch of them.
Right.
It's so cool.
And that's one of my favorite ones there. That's the reason why, because there's so many in one spot.
That's insane. I've never heard that one before. Did they ever see or find out what they have armor? Were they some kind of, where are they from? Any features?
Yeah. So normally you may find like a stone battle axe or something like that, or stone axe head. But it didn't say. And so they're just assuming that maybe they had fought with the wood clubs or something like that, which that's kind of hard for me to believe, but maybe they did.
No, that's, that's just amazing. I never heard that before. That's a lot of giants.
Yeah.
That's a lot of giants together. And speaking of giants, I've never seen one before, but I believe that there was one buried in our backyard. So we used to live, so a big mound in the ranch we used to have, just a perfect mound. And I never knew anything about giants. I'm 34, so I barely started looking into giants maybe when I was like 22, 23. But I moved out of that place way before that. And so much weird stuff happened at that place. Weird UFO sightings.
Really?
Weird cryptid creatures. Like really paranormal type activity, sleep paralysis. I would get there. Just a lot of.
Did you see any like lights or anything like that?
Oh, yeah.
Like orbs?
Oh, yeah. I saw like on the mound too. Now that when I thought about this after mounds and the giant, there's always like some kind of bad energy by these mounds. And actually that brings up another theory. when you watch movies, like a movie about a haunting or a true story, what's always like, the common thing, it's buried on an Indian burial ground. Well, what do Indian dead bodies just have curses or they built on top of a mound, a giant mound? Right. I think it's actually, these giant skeletons buried underneath are the ones with all the curses and bringing all the strange activity. But anyways, back to your question. The first UFO I saw out there was, I'm going to go to the mound first, because on the mound, I would see like these little orbs at night, and the mound was about maybe about 100 yards away. We had about 12 acres, so it was big ranch.
Yeah.
And I was a kid. When you see that, you don't want to go over there, but I could see it far away, like these little sparkles just flying around the mound. I have no idea what they were. They're like stars from where I was at, but I wasn't going to go check it out either.
Yeah.
So I probably seen that about 20 times. I lived there, for about 15, 16 years. So I saw it, once in a while. But I saw a UFO there, like a little orb. Some of these UFOs, they don't look like mechanical. They look like a little light.
Right.
This one may probably be about as big as maybe 10 basketballs. And it was just zigzagging around in the sky, doing its own thing. And then, you see those ones a lot out there, those kind of little orbs zigzagging. But the craziest one that I saw was a massive triangle boomerang type of UFO. Those boomerang looking ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I saw it with my dad, and we ended up finding out like a week later, like hundreds of people saw it. So we saw this massive just triangle. It looked like had been the size of a football field, but it was high. Way up high. And my dad's, he got in the car, went to go chase it, try to get a picture of it, with the little Kodak camera.
Right.
The ones back in the day. This is like, like 2000. This is like 1998, right, Dad? Maybe 90. Yeah. So he had a T-top Corvette. So he pulled the top off, and we're looking over at the freeway. And it just, when we got right under it, I looked up under it, and it had, like each point. So, there's 3 points in the triangle, the boomerang. So each point had a light on it, like a really bright light. And then in the middle had this like little glass looking ball. Those are things you get when you're a kid and you touch it and the plasma goes to your fingers.
Right.
It looked like that was in the middle, and there was like these green lasers like shooting like energy. I don't know, like the engine. I don't know, like some kind of energy engine. But anyways, it was going really slow around the freeway, and then it just went from 0 to took off, and it went towards LA. And about 30 seconds later, these big black helicopters went chasing out.
Really?
And so my dad called the airspace, and they said nothing happened. And then back then, Art Bell was very popular on the radio. And we ended up, what happened? He ended up talking about it, right? A bunch of people started calling into the show saying that they saw the UFO. And then my dad had called Art Bell to like, yeah, we saw it too. And then he told me to draw a picture, and my picture was on his website. It was actually pretty cool.
That's awesome.
That's some crazy stuff out there. And I think all this Indian burial ground stuff has to do with these giants. Like they're.
Oh, I think so. Yeah, I really do. I mean, I've been studying the burial mounds too, and it seems to be like, and I have a book. I just bought a book about it, Ancient Monuments of the Mississippi Valley.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's a good book. You should get
anything in America, anything that's in, what's it called again? Let me see. Okay.
Yeah,
so it's a little bit this way, Mississippi.
Yeah.
Right there. Got it.
I can read it. I can read it to you.
Yeah,
It's Ancient Monuments of the Mississippi Valley by E.G. Squire and E.H. Davis, M.D., and they worked for the Smithsonian.
Nice. Oh, so
and they talk about, in this book, they talk about the different types of mounds, because you had the temple mounds, you had burial mounds, and they had mounds that they really weren't sure what they were for. But the thing that they also studied were these giants had all these fortifications, like hill forts, all throughout the U.S., like Fort Ancient. Some of them you could probably still go see, like stone walls. They had towers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, it's really interesting just to read through that and to and they don't really talk about the heights of these guys that much, which is interesting. Even back then. It's the people that are finding them, reporting it in the newspaper, and then they said they sent them off to such and such place. That's where you're finding the reports on how big they were. But the way these guys write is that a lot of times you'll have a mound, and the mound builder will be low down in there, and then a lot of the natives later would bury on the same mound, but they'd be low, be up at the top, which kind of makes sense. So you would have a mix of people buried in a mound, by the time, late 1800s got here.
Wow, it's a lot of crazy. The more I learn about this, the more I do not see America. I don't believe that Christopher Columbus just got here in this big jungle and we just, I don't believe that. But I truly picture the old world completely different. Giants everywhere, all over America, all these different kingships set up. definitely way more advanced technology. And there's a lot of stone structures they find over America. And I believe there's pyramids, you know, in America too as well.
Yeah.
And I believe
a lot of earthen pyramids. I've been to one in
which
Tennessee. It's in Pinson, Tennessee, and it's about 74 feet tall, and it's a flat top pyramid, but it's made out of earth.
Oh, wow.
I forget how, they have these theories. But it takes this many people, this many baskets of earth, and this long to build it. Who knows really? But these are giants building it, so it didn't take as long probably.
And there were a lot, and there was, we know they were strong, but I believe they were like supernaturally strong as well. Like they crushed a rock with their hand. But back to you were saying really quick, you said with these, I think I went off really far again, but you left off on the leprechaun thing with the little, you said you found little people in the giants with the giants buried with them, right? Did you was that really common or that's very interesting?
No, that's the only one I've ever found like that.
That's so weird.
With them buried together. I feel like I found some before. Let me see if I can't find it.
There's a good book that you would like called, what's it called? Little Creatures by Steve Quayle.
Oh, really?
He has every single article and even pictures of these little weird fairy houses they found. Like they found a whole city of fairy houses.
Really?
Like just little homes, like this little fairy town and giant bones. It's called Little Creatures, but it's about all the different weird skeletons that they find. You should check it out. You love it.
Yeah. Well, I think I have. He wrote a book on giants too, didn't he?
Yeah, I have that one too.
I've got that one.
That makes sense with the little people because I forget. I don't know if it's Coronado. It's one of the conquistadors that sailed up the Colorado River when it was approachable through the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah. At
one time, but they witnessed a giant tribe with little people with them.
Really?
Yeah, it's chronicle. I don't remember who the chronicler was, but I can find it and I'll message you on that. But definitely there was giants and there were little people with them that the conquistadors chronicled.
They were buddies.
Yep.
That's so weird.
Lord of the Rings, man.
That is weird. But it lends some credence to like that one report I found in the Dakotas of the giant with the little people, together. Like they were friends, I guess. I mean, you're all buried together.
I think those little, I think they're like mischievous little things, I think they did all the little dirty work they sent them.
I mean, they say they're still around.
I believe it. I believe it.
I haven't seen one yet, but
I think they're hiding.
I don't doubt it. I mean, it'd be a lot easier to hide than the giant. Like you could just duck down to the ground or hide behind a tree and be real still. I'd walk right, we'd walk right past them.
And I believe they have some kind of ability to camouflage themselves. I don't know. I really do think they have. There's some kind of truth to all those little stories about them. But when you mention they're still around, I don't know if you heard that story about I'm pretty sure you heard about what's it called? The giant in Kandahar?
Yes.
Yeah, that was in 2000, maybe 8, maybe.
Somewhere in there, yeah. And
I personally have a friend. I have two friends. One that was was in Iraq during that area in that time when this whole story went out, and it was it was circling around the whole, the whole U.S. Army that was there. Like everybody heard about it like that. A lot of people got killed by this giant. They had to shoot it, take it out, and then a group of people, loaded it up on a helicopter, and it weighed 1,000 pounds or something like that, and it was about 15 feet tall. And I truly believe that story because my friend, one friend, and he wouldn't lie to me. I mean, he didn't see anything, but everybody's not going to talk about it that much if there's something behind it. And people were really serious about it, and they ended up finding out that the locals were worshiping this thing like a god and feeding it, giving it sacrifices. They said they found all kinds of human bones in there. They're probably sacrificing people to this thing.
Oh man!
And so after that, I had another friend that was in the military, but he wasn't in that area at the time. But he said there's a camera footage of it, and it was on the internet, I guess, a long time ago because he tried to send it to me 2 years ago because I posted something on Instagram about it. He's all, dude, he's like, I seen that video. And I was like, I'll get out of here. Let me see this. What do you mean you've seen this video? Yeah. This is catching Bigfoot on camera. So, he's all, yeah, dude, I've seen it a bunch of times. A lot of guys in the military saw it. So, man, he's all, it's real. It's crazy. So I'm like, of course, he wrote me back. It's wiped off the internet. Really trustworthy guy. Wouldn't believe he was lying. But he said it in the video. He said he saw it. He said, it's fast, but it's in a cave. and it was just really big. It said it was really hairy, like really pale, like almost a bluish pale color.
Yeah.
And he said it was just hairy, and he said, they were shooting at it. They said this thing was fast. It just wiped them all out really quick, and another crew had to come in, shoot it, take it out. Yeah. And they also said that at one point this thing had a spear, and the first guy that came in, they said when he speared him, I guess when he hit him with the spear, his body went like 50 feet across in the air. Just this thing was huge, and the spear was like, it was crazy.
Well,
crazy story. Crazy
being that
story.
big, it wouldn't be hard for them to throw a normal person that far.
Absolutely. And then in the stories in the diaries of the conquistadors, they were saying when they got to some of the islands that when they were getting onto the shores, and they were taking refuge behind some of these trees, and the giants were trying to hit them, and they said their arrows would go through the palm trees because their arrows were so big. That's terrifying, because one of those things hits you, you're out, you're done. Yeah,
you need to be their friend, because if not, then we don't stand a chance.
There's another thing too I wanted to ask you about, since you have so much information. I love it. Have you ever heard about the Solomon Islands?
Yes.
That right there is very interesting too. I heard they're still there to this day.
I heard that too. I'm trying to bring up her name. She studies this. You may be able to help me on that. But she's, I followed her on Instagram. But I can't, it's escaped my mind right now. But
Mysteries of Solomon Islands.
Her name is Heather. I think her name is Heather.
Yeah.
Heather Arnold. And she studies that. Like, she says that they're still there.
Yeah. This is like the place, I guess, where it's common knowledge, and the locals, don't go to the mountains.
The locals know about it. They know to stay away from certain areas. And they said they live underground, and they come out at certain times, almost like they come out at night or something like that.
Absolutely. And even in the book that I read, it's called the Solomon Islands Mysteries. That's what it's called. And it's the accounts of giants and UFOs in the Solomon Islands by Marius Borayan. But one of the interesting stories in there, and I have to go back in the book. Man, I should have remembered it and brought it up to you. But there's a story in there that you can look up in the news articles, and I have to send it to you because I know you could find those articles. Okay. But it was in the articles, I believe, but it wasn't in America, though. It was in Australia.
Okay.
Where when a lot of these, the Europeans were, getting over to the Solomon Islands, they were trying to be friends with these giants. They would trade them for tobacco and stuff like that. And I guess somehow they got some kind of relationship with them. And I guess a lot of the way it's described in the book, a lot of these giants were were starting to get smaller, but they were still strong. Even if a giant was 6'5", he would look different at 6'5", just really wide, bigger head. He
was blocky.
Exactly, probably. Really blocky. And the way it's described in the book, they said this guy that writes his book is taught, he supposedly met these things, talked to them straight to their face, blah blah blah, and has all these different stories of the neighbors and the other people around it, where they would kidnap even the daughters and try to have kids with them, crazy stories. But anyways, one of the giants, one of these sailors befriended a giant, and I guess he was, the way he described, he had more human genetics in him than giant, but he still looked like his his kind as described, but he wasn't as, he could speak more, because I guess the other ones, they spoke a different language.
Yeah, I'm sure it's some sort of a...
Yeah, and
like a Sasquatch down.
Like this giant could fit in with his kind and a human. If you didn't know about giants, he would just look like a very big guy that was extra buff, and just maybe this guy is on too many steroids or something. But and then he also fit in as a small version of his parents, the way it's described. So they took him to Australia for boxing, for some kind of boxing match, and this is where it's written in the newspapers, and it's in the book, and I have to find it. But
that's a good story.
To find it. And I guess, they take him to go to make money for obvious reasons, because they know how strong this thing is. And they take it. And I guess the first boxing match, he said, the way it said, he punched him in the chest, and his hand went through his chest, and his arm got stuck in his chest. When he pulled it out, the guy was dead.
Oh, yeah.
And then they were just what the heck? And it happened again. They brought some big Russian guy, I guess, goes in, his eye can take him. He was about the same height as him. But again, big difference. And I guess he hit him one time and killed him, and they kicked them out and they couldn't come back. But there's a whole like article about it. I got to find it, but it's very interesting. I got to send that to you.
Dude, yeah, I have another site that I can research, and it brings up a lot of sites accounts from, and that's where I found the one that was like 32 foot tall. It was from a site that was based in Australia, so I may be able to search that site and see what I can find.
Absolutely.
I have to come up with the right key search words, and it's so hard to bring things up. And then sometimes when you're searching, you'll stumble over something really cool, but it's like, well, how did I find that? You'll find something else cool while you're looking for something else that you can't find. So like I'm always finding stuff that I'm not searching for.
It's like the rabbit hole, as they say. I get caught up in this stuff so much, but it's the most interesting thing to me to talk about. I mean, what else are we going to talk about? I mean, Netflix. I mean, all that stuff is a waste of time. This is more interesting. Yeah. This is real life.
Right.
And if more people just paid attention to like read the Bible and read it for what it is, it's an epic. It's the most epic, most amazing story, the biggest heroic story of all time, and we're living it. And everything from giants to dragons, I 100% believe existed.
Yeah, me too.
I believe that these giants at one point walked among us, and their fathers were the god kings, as they say, and they were doing what they did, as I say in the Bible. They were enslaving us and eating us at one point, trying to take dominion over Earth. In my opinion, that's why the flood happened. Get rid of that bad gene. And I think they're going to come back one day. But me personally, I think they're going to come back in a hidden way. Because if a bunch of giants start coming back, everyone's going to be like, well, this is from the Bible. I think they're going to come back as like maybe cybernetics are going to take over. That'd be a different kind of Nephilim, right? Technically, a Nephilim is a hybrid, right? So, I think they're going to come back with like maybe they're going to splice our DNA. Maybe that's why they take all the bones. They take all the bones. Maybe they're trying to clone them or something, or make some kind
got a point.
Different version. Because why do they always take the bones? If they can, Yeah,
it's not just to suppress the history.
They want to recreate these things.
What are you going to do with the thing of bones, right? They're going to like try to get the stuff out of it and see if they can't clone, because they're always messed with cloning and stuff.
It's almost like superhero. They're trying to get that superhero genetic, and I think this is why all these superhero movies are becoming popular again. You're basically looking at a bunch of hybrids. You got Thor, where he's a demigod, right? Half human, half god, and so on and so on. You have the Hulk, which is basically a giant, jolly green giant of all things, green giant. You see, everything's all there. Then Captain America would be, in my opinion, the new Nephilim they're going to try to make. How they're all having this genetic race for the best soldiers, super soldiers.
Yeah,
they're doing this, so they're talking about splicing humans with gorilla DNA and et cetera, et cetera. To me, that's them coming back. They don't have to be big. It's just the same thing in a different package.
The devil's involved in it too, and so like you have a point like he may be trying to sneak it in.
Yeah, trying to sneak it in.
Not like you're saying, just like they all show up or something. Like he's going about it differently. Like I believe the devil himself tempted those watchers to do what they did. Like even though they weren't demons or devils, yet until they did that. But I believe he was involved to get them to implant them in the Holy Land and have them be there when Israelites come in. Like they were there and they were a problem.
Absolutely, they were a problem, but they still got taken out by.
Yeah.
Usually get taken out by someone that you would never expect. Wasn't Joshua in his 80s when he went to go? He was in his 80s, right?
He would have been an older guy for sure.
And apparently he was slicing them down. So.
Well, see, he had to live through that 40-year period of wandering in the wilderness with all the other guys. So, like, he was up there. He was up there in age.
That's what I'm saying. It's heroic. Just imagine that. Daddy has something to say?
Well, there's this is contextual proof. The footprints. There's footprints in South Africa, Indonesia, Malaysia. They're all over the world.
I even found one in. It's on my Instagram. You can go look. It's. I found it in a riverbed in Texas too.
Yeah.
I kind of keep it hush hush where it's at, so it doesn't disappear.
I would too. And obviously the Conquistadors, they did a good job of chronicling these things. Don Ciez de Leon.
Yes.
That's the guy's name I was trying to tell you about.
Augustin de Desarte published text on South American giants in 1553 AD and 1555, respectively. So basically, the Conquistadors were, this published 20 years of Pizarro. They said that the native traditions told the incoming Spanish that the giants came to the Americas on raft-like boats. Some of these men were so tall that from the knee down, they were as large as a man. Their eyes were the size of plates. Some were clad in skins and others mostly naked. They said there were no women with them, which was, they found that strange. And these giants dug deep water wells through rock. And these wells still exist today, they say here. But, this is talking a long time ago. And then we have, in the summer of 1931, Monsignor F. Luedi, I believe I'm probably butchering that, organized an expedition to the jungles of San Augustine. He found traces of a very ancient South American empire known to the old British buccaneers of the 17th century. These men were giants who had knowledge of electricity, which they used in various forms. And it goes on, it says that this race of ancient white giant men with beards was called the Viracochas. Now, this is Viracocha, right? So Pedro Cias de Leon said that they came along before the Incas began to reign, and the Indians also called these white men Titicaca. So that's Lake Titicaca. That's like maybe they're venerating these things, and it goes on to say that these there's huge statues of these giants with 6 fingers and 6 toes on the door to the sun. So the Spanish saw these things not only here, but they saw them in Florida. They chronicled all these giants in Patagonia, way down South America. Right. I think this is contextual, but I also think it's evidence, it's proof. The Bible says there were giants, so there were giants. I go back to Robert Schoch, the PhD who wrote this article about the South Africa footprint. That's proof there was a giant, in that time.
What about the skulls in Peru? Aren't those elongated skulls on display, literally like giant skulls, or are they just not that big? Because they are, whether they're small, whether they're not normal skulls. The anatomy's all off. So aren't those proof?
I think some of them are. Some of them are bigger. I've seen pictures of them holding them. It's like, that massive. Looks tiny. So, but I think
definitely not.
There is a Nephilim trait there, even if they aren't huge. But I have read, and I would like to find it again, that there was a museum down there that did have a couple 8-foot giants on display a long time ago.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're still there anymore. So that they're there. That they're still in burial mounds. The Chachapoya was a tribe of cloud warriors, and they were just north of Lima, up in the mountains there. And they were described as very tall, kind of like you were saying about some of those down there, like the Viracocha. They were tall, red-haired, like really white-skinned giants. And they have these big cities of stone way up in the mountains, and so they called them cloud warriors because a lot of times they lived above the clouds.
Yeah.
So when they would come down, they had to come down through the clouds.
Really, that's
jungle.
Very interesting because the Native Americans call them cloud eaters.
Okay.
The Native American have their own little nickname. They call them the cloud eaters. That's very interesting. Kind of reminds me of the Jack and the Beanstalk climbing to the clouds.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Wow.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Who knows where all these stories come from? They're all coming from some truth.
Every single one of these people that draw these little silly cartoons and try to make it a joke, they know exactly what they're talking about. And I believe they get to share these movies all over the world because they're part of it. They're not that creative, Go ahead. Sorry.
There's you probably know this one, Travis. The North American Indians believed that the first race of human beings were giants. In the autobiography of William Buffalo Bill Cody, Cody writes that while camping on the South Platte, a Pawnee Indian came into the camp. And basically what they discussed was that these giants were able to run down a buffalo and put it under its arm and run with it and go ahead and, do what it does, barbecue it.
They say they would sometimes grab it and just eat it like that.
So, that's wild. This is historic. This is Buffalo Bill.
Buffalo Bill.
That's not even that long ago, right? So it is, but not really. It's fairly recent history. For him to get that story from a native is fascinating.
It's very all this stuff is coming out to the light more. I believe we're in the time when the Bible says that all the information is going to get out, all the truth. And some people still don't believe it. It doesn't matter. There's always going to be people that don't believe anything because I think they're scared to believe it. I don't think some people want to believe the Bible is real because it's going to terrify them.
Right. I mean, there are scary things in the Bible, but we have to face our fears.
Exactly.
And that's what builds faith. Is you have to face those fears.
So, one more thing I was going to ask you. I'm going to kind of cut loose here in about 5 minutes. I don't want to take up your time. It's been absolutely great. I feel like I've known you for like a couple years, man. I really enjoyed talking to you. I would love to have you to come on in the future whenever you have some time, if that's okay with you. I love talking about everything we talked. Maybe we can do like a specific story next time.
Dude, that's a good idea. Yeah, because there's so many of these articles we didn't even touch just because we needed to just visit about it.
Oh no, it's gonna take. You could talk about giants for a podcast every week for about 10 years. Literally, that's how much stuff. There's so much stuff in there. But I just wanted people to just hear. I mean, we talked about a lot of articles. We talked about a lot of things that were factual. And it's not like there's only one or two articles. There's literally like, how many articles do you have on your Instagram? Like 500, 600, and they're all legit 100% articles that were printed out.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I don't go to the internet and rip something off because that was one thing that I didn't like. Well, even in the book, I was like, I bought the book and I was like, this isn't an attack on anybody's book or anything. A lot of them are printed out to where you could read it easier. Yeah. So I wanted to see the actual article, but I also wanted to be able to find it myself. Like I wanted to see, like, let me do my own research. They were there. Okay. They're all there. You have to dig, but they are actually there.
No, they're 100% there.
That's what I wanted people to see.
you got to go. Tell them your Instagram so everybody can see all these crazy articles that you have.
Okay. Well, it's Giants_of_Ancient America. One word. So it's Giants of Ancient America.
It's such a good Instagram. I can go through that thing all day. Like it's like playing, that game you spin it, which one I want to look at. Stop. There's always a good one. There's always a good one. And definitely follow me back, if you want to be my friend on Instagram, and we'll definitely schedule another one, have my dad reach out to you again. And Dad, you have something to say?
Yeah, this is just like a introduction into giants, but we definitely want to come back and revisit it with a specific agenda. We didn't even get into, for example, Abraham Lincoln's speech at Niagara, where he says the eyes of that species of extinct giants whose bones fill the mountains of America have gazed on Niagara as ours do now. So even the president of the United States acknowledged that they were giants. So, I mean, So, we'd like to have you back on.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. This was great. I had a great conversation with you.
With me right here, too, and I just didn't get to it.
It's all right. But, we can definitely do another one. This was great. And next time, we'll talk more and then we'll get, a real stay on one lane because, it's so much to talk about. Like we go left and right, but it's fun, though. I mean, I like.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I like it when it does that, too, because it kind of like things will get out there that we need to talk about.
Pulling threads, man. Pulling threads, Yeah,
when my dad told me we're going to have you on as a guest, I was like, yes, we're going to talk about giants. And then I heard John Blurry Creatures, like, man, yes. I was like, hell yeah. Beautiful.
So, and I really liked you bringing out the Conquistador stories when you were reading the one about the eyes the size of plates.
And we were talking about that cave thing, how they need to see at night. And their eyes glowed. And I think their eyes, because, they could see at night.
Yeah. Travis, the Conquistadors have a lot of stuff chronicled.
I need to get my hands on like some of their chronicled stories.
There's some wild ones in there. And next time we have you on, I'll communicate with you. Let's pick a topic. If you want to go down the Conquistadors or a different direction, let's. So this is an overview of the giants.
Right. Great. Yep. And it was good.
Thank you,
really
sir.
Good.